Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As technology continues to grow by leaps and bounds, there is an incessant need for adopting it to innovate and develop new systems with greater potential in the future. Technology is impacting the platforms as well as system designs in numerous ways, and we have to embrace these developments to stay abreast. Let's now invite Mr. Ajay Kumar, Defense Secretary, Ministry of Defense, Government of India, for a keynote address on building Indigenous defense tech for India, challenges and opportunities. Welcome, Mr. Kumar. Thank you very much for joining us. I now hand it over to you.
Hi, friends. It's actually an honor to be speaking to all of you on this occasion of a national conference being organized by Economic Times, and to share some of the perspectives with respect to how India is growing in terms of indigenous capability in defense. In the last few years, there has been tremendous thrust on developing true self-reliance. And when I talk of true self-reliance, I want to emphasize that this has to be beyond mere transfer of technology, because transfer of technology actually continues you to be held, contracted or constrained by the person who is actually giving you technology. And therefore, while manufacturing is extremely important and significant amount of progress has been made in defense manufacturing, now our thrust is to be able to develop indigenous cutting-edge technologies. And in this respect, when we are doing so, this will enable us not only to make defense equipment and platforms for India, but also for friendly countries in the world. It is in this context I want to particularly mention the significant announcements that have been made in the budget this year. Friends, as you would know, that for last 2 years now, we have started the practice of earmarking our budget, part of our budget, for capital procurement, for indigenous domestic procurement only. This was an unprecedented move when we started it in 2021, and that year we earmarked 58% of our total budget for indigenous capital procurement. In 21-22, that is the current financial year, we increased this percentage to 64%. And in the forthcoming year, in 22-23, this amount is being increased to 68%. This is a clear signal to the industry that government is continuously and progressively going to increase dependence on domestic sources for its requirement. Indian armed forces will continue to procure more and more from Indian industry. Not only this, we have also been using the budgetary instrument to promote greater participation of private industry. While the policy intent in this regard has been there, the fact remains that domestic industry has for a long time remained as synonymous to public sector procurement. Our effort is to be able to grow both private sector industry and public sector. And it is in this direction we have also decided that 25% of the indigenous procurement shall be from private domestic industry. This is today ambitious for the private industry, given that many contracts are not there with the private industry. But the kind of enthusiasm and momentum that we have seen in the last couple of years, we are confident that in the coming year, 25% target for private industry will be achieved, and in subsequent years, we may even see private secretary may be demanding even more. The third aspect of our budgetary control, which I want to talk about, is for the first time, I think, by any department or ministry of government, we have earmarked budgetary allocation to promote technologies and solutions produced by startups. You are aware that under IDEX, defense challenges are thrown out, and this program was started through IDEX in 2018. And in last 3 years or so, we have seen humongous response, and not only in scale, but also the quality of response has been amazing. And therefore, last year onwards, we have decided that 1,000 crore rupees will be earmarked for procurement of technologies. The beauty of what startups have been doing is that what would traditionally take several years, 6 to 10 years for development, and what would take several hundred crores of rupees, sometime running into thousands of crore rupees. Under IDEX, as some of you may know, the maximum support that government gives is 1.5 crores, and that too based on milestone-based progress. And the time of development has reduced from several years to 10 to 12 months or 18 months. And the third aspect of the way startups have been developing new technologies is the large number of these startups are doing multiple problems, different problems, which has enabled us to attack large number of problems at the same time without having to wait serially to move from one problem to the another. In this respect, I want to relate and share with you the recent story of the drone show, which many of you may have seen during the beating retreat ceremony of the Republic Day this year. It was sometime in the month of September 2021 that we decided that we could organize a drone show of this nature. We targeted a swarm of 1,000 drones to be able to do this kind of a show effectively. We inquired and we found that there was an international company, I don't want to name it, which would do this for us. We thought, will it be possible to do this indigenously? And we scouted for startups. And we came across this startup at IIT Delhi who said they were flying drones of this nature and they would be willing to take it up. They said that at that time, they had 80 drones, which they had maximum flown. We were looking for 1,000 drones. They said they would be able to do 1,000 drones. We were willing to take the risk. We encouraged them to do it. But the constraint that this team had was that they needed money to build the 900 odd additional drones. They only had 80 drones. And they didn't have the capital for doing this. We spoke to Department of Science and Technology, and Science and Technology was kind enough to sanction some 2 crore rupees for their additional support. However, as you know, sometimes in government, the sanction and the cash flow doesn't follow. Therefore, these people, although they got the sanction, they still did not have the cash by which they could actually obtain the chips and other things which could be used for such a occasion. One of these people, one of the persons in the team had an inheritance which he received of about 40 lakhs. And the other members of the team contributed a couple of lakhs each or few lakhs each, and they could muster 60 lakhs, which was enough to buy the necessary chips which they required to actually make the 900 plus drones which they needed. And then they went to buy those chips. unfortunately, because last year, as some of you may know, that there was a huge chip shortage, global chip shortage in the world, and their customary source of chips indicated they would not be able to give the chips. They then looked for other companies, and finally they found another new company with whom they had not done business before in Taiwan, who promised to supply them those requisite chips. And taking the risk, they deposited all the 60 lakh rupees to this new unknown company. Time passed, the chips did not come, and we were into the month of November. January is the show, and all the money they had actually given to this company in the hope that they will get the chips. They kept on following up, and eventually the chips started coming. By December, they started making those drones, and on real time, they were able to make the drones and keep practicing with increased number of drones. As some of you know, those who are involved with technology, you would appreciate that in a lot of these technological problems, the complexity of the problem increases not linearly, but exponentially with scale. And moving therefore from 80 to 1000 drone is not about 12 times more difficult, but maybe several billion times more difficult in terms of complexity of the problem. To cut the long story short, these people actually were able to have the 100 drones or 1000 drones developed on time, do the show immaculately on the beating retreat, and made India the fourth country in the world to be able to conduct a drone show of this kind. 2 points I want to make, and for this long story, I want to share 2 points which has touched me so much. One is, in India, the first thing is, I mentioned there was an international company who used to do this. Without going into specifics, I can tell you the amount that was being quoted for a similar show for 1000 drones was multiple times of the total assistance that we gave to this particular startup for actually developing a new set of drones and do the show. And I've told you we gave them 2 crores only, and now they can do as many shows as they want. The amount that was charged was multiple times. The second point I always want to stress is, as you possibly know, the drone regulations were liberalized sometime in August last year, before which the design, manufacturing, and flying of drones was restricted and was not really available to anyone. And the moment the regulation was relaxed, this is the way the energy of our youth have unleashed and has been able to show what kind of technological progress they can make and take us right to the top of the global chart. This is something which we have discovered all through in the progress. And it is this, I have gone at length in the story just to make these 2 points. I think the policy reforms that the government is taking will help and go a very long way to develop the innovation potential in the country in the technological domain. And it is in this context that if we were to talk about the other budget announcements of this year, for the first time, defense R&D has been opened up for industry, startups, and academia. It will no more be the realm of only government and government-related agencies. However, they will continue to perform the best they are doing. They are doing a lot of good work is being done, but the requirement is huge. The requirement is changing very fast, and this new regulation will now enable, like I said, we have seen to scale up the number of problems that can be taken up at the same cost, and in a model that will reduce the cost of developing new technology significantly. And secondly, it has also been decided that 25% of the defense R&D budget will be earmarked for industry, academia, and startups for this kind of innovation and new products. Let me conclude. I think, given the momentum and trajectory of our defense ecosystem, which has been developed, and there have been several steps which have been taken in the past couple of years, I have focused on specifically on development of new defense technologies, defense R&D. But given the trajectory that we are seeing, and given the excitement, I have been several industries who are in the defense domain have been calling me and informing me of their excitement and optimism that they feel that this could revolutionize the defense technology capabilities in the country like never before since independence. Let me conclude with my last point. What gives me confidence that opening up of defense R&D will be a game changer? I would like to refer to the experience we had in the COVID pandemic. When the COVID pandemic struck us last year in February, March 2020, 2 years back, we did not have capabilities to make ventilators in this country. We did not have technology to make diagnostic kits. Of course, no one had technology for vaccines. And we did not have technologies for most of the things that were required to deal with COVID. I am also reminded that there was a company which used to make ventilators in India and was exporting ventilators to about half a dozen countries, but the same ventilators were not approved in India because of our regulatory setup as controlled in that regime. Came the crisis of COVID, the regulation in that regard, and this had been going on in my earlier hat in the Ministry of Electronics and IT. We had been pushing this aspect that regulation should be relaxed. At that time, we were not successful. But when the COVID crisis came, the health regulatory setup reviewed their whole process and guidelines, opened up the regulation, and that led to today, as we have all seen, India has not only produced adequately and more for all its requirements, whether it is vaccines, whether it is drugs, whether it is diagnostics, whether it's ventilators, whether it's oxygen plants, whether it's PP kits, and so on and so forth. But we have exported to over 120 countries, and we are one of the biggest vanguards of COVID fight against COVID in the world. I think this is an important lesson when it comes to defense, which in itself is one, in some ways, the frontier of all technologies. So it is with this optimistic note, I think that we are today on the gateway of a new era in defense technologies. And I would like to invite our defense partners, stakeholders, academia, industry, startups, defense PSUs, and other organizations to participate in this opportunity and make this policy initiative a big success. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for shedding light on the challenges and opportunities for building indigenous defense tech for India. Now let's proceed to the next session. Stay tuned, everyone.